Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Crafty Concepts with Erin. I have a scrapbook layout for you today. And yes, you can see we are going to be using pattern 4 from Close to My Heart's Make It From Your Heart Volume 6 sketchbook. So the third Friday of the month, my crafty team and I collaborate, each bringing you our own take on a given sketch. So you can see it's a single page layout here. They have 4 photos, title in the middle, and I love that they give you 2 different takes on that sketch. So you have a spring, Easter, and then wintry Christmas here, so switching up the papers and the colors and embellishments and whatnot just gives you more ideas on how you can use that sketch. And of course, I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to turn this sketch into a double page layout. These books, if you're new to this collaboration, they do give you all of the measurements. It's like following a recipe, which is so nice. But I have bigger photos, I have more photos, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to use this inspiration and make it work for me. Now I chose the current November-December mix-in collection, and these are designed to go along with the current Silver Bells and Evergreen collection, but they work great as a standalone paper pack or just a great collection of neutral patterns you can mix and match into, your stash. So I chose these because we were visiting Bodie. This is a historic gold mining ghost town. It was really cool that the whole town just packed up and left. So there's a lot of wood and brick, and they're very rustic, and you can see here the wood tones and then this dusty kind of rose colored tone and desert rose, sorry, are going to just work beautifully for these photos. Look at that cool old truck. So I've got 3 4x6s, a 4x4, and then 2 3x4s. I think I'm going to add that into a flip flap, and this is going to sit on the back side. So that's why I have that not matted yet. But let me go ahead and clear these out of the way, and we'll grab the Versamats. So I already trimmed down my papers because I pretty much know where I'm going with this layout due to following the sketch. So I've got these for my base papers here. You can see they have used pattern paper, and this one they just used dark cardstock. So I am going to use pattern paper, and I do have 2 of the mix-in collections. These are double-sided, and in this case it looks very similar, but one side is a gray tone and the other side is a toffee tone. So this one is going to go like this, and then I had already cut into this one because I had used it for a strip of it for some Christmas cards. So I do need to put down a piece of white daisy to have something to mat all of my layers on. So I have some pattern paper strips. This one here is from the Evergreen collection. I want to bring in some of this dark pine color. So that is 8 inches by 12. And then this is from the mix-ins. That's that little pine wood pattern paper. And then I didn't necessarily follow the measurements for the left hand side for these paper strips because I already had some of the strips cut and I wanted to use them. So you can kind of just look at the sketch for inspiration, or you can follow along on the measurements exactly and take the guesswork out of it, which is always nice. It just helps you scrapbook faster. And then this one's going to go over here. So as I mentioned, this side's going to look like this sketch as far as the paper strips go. I'm going to switch it up with the photos. And now when it's sitting in the album, it's going to look like one continuous 12 by 24 piece. Off camera, I did add a little mocha ink to the edge of all my layers. I think you can really see it there. And I did remove the pattern paper section that was hidden behind this pine green pattern. So I salvaged the other remaining piece of that. And I haven't adhered anything down because I'm kind of envisioning a little background and texture stamping maybe peeking out from underneath these layers. So I'm going to dry fit everything first. And I want, let's see, so they actually had 4 photos, if you recall, in the sketch. It looks like they've done 3x4s and 3x3s and put them almost in kind of like a little grid style fashion there. You could do all squares, or you could do all 3x4s. I have a 4x6, and then this is a 4x4. So I'm thinking maybe kind of like this. And then I can kind of put my title here or here, and then I have room for embellishments. So then we've got this photo, we've got this one with the cool truck here. Actually, let's slide this one over, and then we can put the 3x4 here. And as I mentioned earlier, this is probably going to go in a flip flap, so there'll really only be the footprint of one 3x4 photo. If you didn't want to use flip flaps, you could put, the other one up here matted on white just so that it is cohesive with the rest of them. But I like to leave areas for embellishments, so that's what that's going to be for. I should add, I know not all of you have access to flip flaps, but if you did go with a design like this, you still have lots of room for an interesting embellishment cluster up here, just overlapping the photo a little bit, some bits and pieces sticking out from the photo, or you could originate from the top here and have some little banner tails hanging down. So, if you wanted to go with a design like this, you still have room for all the fun bits to add to the layout. I have this stamp set here called the Evergreen Scrapbooking Stamp, and it's a great opportunity to use this because how perfect is that? So there's this large wooden church on the stamp set. I, was really drawn to the pine trees, but I knew I had these photos, so I definitely wanted to use this. And there were so many cool old buildings here in Bodie, but the church was really my favorite. It was just so pretty, and you could walk up and look inside, and there were better angles to get a shot of this church, but I didn't want any of the people. So when I was taking my photographs, I was really wanting to capture that empty ghost town feel. So I worked really hard to not have any other tourist in my photos outside of my own family. So this is a pretty big stamp here. I want to stamp this first to make sure that it's going to work with my design here. And you're probably thinking, well, how many opportunities do you have to use a large church stamp like this on a layout? So I'm going to show you some other ways that you can reinvent this stamp and turn it into a cute little log cabin. So let me grab my MISTI. Let me go ahead and make some room here on my workspace. So I have a piece of white daisy in the corner of my MISTI. That looks like a nice chocolatey smudgy print. We don't want that. So we'll just flip that over and put the church right here. Pick it up with the MISTI door. Now I am going to be coloring this with my alcohol markers, and typically when I do that, I recommend you use the intense black ink. This ink here is great for coloring with alcohol markers because it doesn't bleed at all. However, with that said, I'm going to color this or stamp this with my mocha ink because I want it to be brown wood planks here. And this way, using my MISTI, I can ink this up a couple times. It is a large stamp. You don't have to have a MISTI. I always say that. But if you craft as much as I do, it is definitely a nice tool to have in your craft room. So you can see here, I'm stamping it as is. Now, you could easily just fussy cut off the steeple to make the log cabin, or you can use the masking technique if you want that white border. So if you're going to fussy cut off this steeple, you're going to follow those lines exactly, and it'll be really tight all the way around. But if you're going to use the coordinating die, you would want to mask that off. Whenever you're masking, make sure your stamp is really clean. We don't want any remaining ink on this steeple part, so it won't transfer to the next one where we don't want the steeple. Hopefully that's making sense. So I just got my stamp chamois here. I wet this each time I'm going to craft and just rinse it out with water in this ink. So it gets pretty ugly looking, but that's okay. It still does its job. I've got another piece of white daisy here. You will need some type of masking tape. This is my favorite, the Post-it removable labeling tape. I love it. It's got the perfect amount of tack. You can get it on a roll, or you can just get a little refill if you have your own little tape dispenser, but it's just the best in my opinion. Washi tape or Post-it notes work also. So let me cut this in half here. We want a nice straight edge so we can get this really tight, and you're just going to mask off the area that you do not want on your image. Go ahead and take your mocha ink pad and ink up the bottom portion of the church here. And once we have good coverage, we can remove the masking tape, and then hopefully we'll get a nice impression. Oops, let me scoot that magnet out of the way. And then there you go. We have a cute little cabin. Stay tuned to the end of the video and I will show you how I use this on a project. I have a couple different Spectrum Noir markers. This is the earth brown and the muted brown, and I will speed this up really quickly. I'm not doing a lot of fancy shading. I am using the medium color of the muted brown for the main part of the church, and then I'm going to add some accents with the darker earth brown. These Spectrum Noir markers do have a really nice bullet tip, so it does make coloring those smaller detailed areas easy. You can get into those areas without going out of the lines. And now I'm adding the dark earth brown to the trim work on our church building here around the windows and then underneath the roof there. I'll color in the roof a little bit lighter, and then I am going to go back in with, actually this is the brown gray for the bell, and I will add brown gray to the windows also. And now just under the roof and kind of at the base of the building, I am adding just the tiniest bit of shadowing. I did go ahead and die cut those out, and I stamped several of the pine trees with pine ink. And I know there's no pine trees in the photo, but on this particular weekend getaway, we did take our motorhome, and after we explored the ghost town, we went and found a spot to camp, just kind of off on our own in the pine trees. So it does go along with my memory of the adventure. I do have this desert rose pattern paper, and it really looks great with the brickwork. So I'm kind of exploring the idea of maybe cutting mats for just the photos that don't have bricks. So this one here with the church, and then the photo with my son looking into the old truck. So I'm just doing those two. I mentioned earlier wanting to add some background and texture stamping. This is the Design Element stamp. It actually retired, and it's so popular that Close to My Heart brought it back, and I'm glad because it is definitely one of my favorites. I was kind of considering stamping right on the background, but I think I'm going to stamp it on this toffee paper here with mocha ink. So you have these cool wood plank elements, and I want kind of this rough staggered edge. You can definitely make a continuous pattern with this one, but we're just going to kind of go down and then fussy cut along those uneven border edges and just on the right side where it's going to be peeking out from underneath my photo. I think this is going to make for a very interesting textural element on the layout, and the rusticness complements the buildings in the photos. Let me scoot these out of the way, and we'll add just a little bit of ink to the edges to finish this off, and then we could tuck it underneath the photos and use it to build more embellishments on top of. We have all of this open space on the right-hand side, and even though I've used a pattern paper that does have a little color and texture, it's very soft and kind of neutral, so I do want to add some interest over to this area. Now, I dug through my stash, and I found these paperboard shapes that are also kind of a faux wood grain. This was from the Candid Moments collection, but there's all of these fun little pieces in here and tags, and they complement the darker colors in the photos. So I just want to add a few of these around. I've got the smaller tag there, and then maybe we can put this one kind of over in this space. Let's wait on that for now. Let's do the background stamping so I can get these adhered down. On that same stamp set, there is this kind of textury, crackly looking stamp, and I mentioned earlier I kind of envisioned something peeking out from behind these papers, so I am going to add just a hint of this using my mocha ink, and then we will do one on the bottom, and then I can go ahead and get my papers all adhered down before I get too carried away with this layout. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes you get the whole thing designed and then you're like, oh, now I got to take it apart and put it all back together. I did add a hint of stamping up by the church, and I'm still trying to figure out where to incorporate these paperboard elements, but maybe I should work on the title first. My first thought was to reach for these thin alpha dies to create my title. I love them and I haven't used them for a while, but they ended up being too big. So originally I was thinking I would have the title all the way across the bottom, but it was just too much. I didn't like how much space they were taking, so then I thought maybe right here. My second thought was to shorten the title. So at first it was going to say Exploring Bodie, and that did fit, but again it was too big, so I shortened it to Explore, and then thought I could stamp out the word Bodie right underneath here, and that would look good. I do like that idea, but I kind of want to use, whoops, stamps are hitting the ground. I kind of want to use these brackets here because I never use my brackets either, and this would house my journaling perfectly. And I was thinking it needed a little bit of horizontal interest under here just to kind of catch all of this sitting on the page. So I turned to my Cricut. I used the print and cut feature to type out Explore Bodie. and that is going to sit right under here. I do want to add a little embellishments over here so we can kind of bump that over just a bit, and I do like how it fits that space, and again I could put my journaling right there. I stamped out a few of these images from the Family Root Stamp Set. This is no longer available, but I love vintage kind of heritage type things, so I always grab these when they come along. And if you love this look, there is a collection coming out in the January-February catalog that I think will make you happy, so I am excited to be sharing that with you soon. But I've got an old-fashioned pocket watch and an antique camera, and I thought these might be fun to kind of add to the layout, maybe over here, just adding to this title here. One of my go-to techniques is to use a circle to kind of house all of the smaller embellishments so they all are feeling kind of cohesive, but that needs a little something. So I already had this circle cut out in white paper. I haven't used white paper anywhere else on the layout, but I'm going to try to make it work. I have that same wood plank stamp in the mocha ink, and I mentioned that you can create a continuous pattern, so that is what I'm doing, and I'm going to cover this entire circle and make my own little wood plank circle embellishment. So one spot down here, and then I'll ink up the edges to finish this off, and then we can layer those embellishments over the top. This circle will help those little embellishments stand out, but it's also going to add some movement and shape to this layout. We have a lot of these vertical lines. Everything's in columns, and that's spilling from the center over to the outside edge. Do you see what I mean? How that just adds a lot with that simple little circle? I also have these tiny little shapes from those same paperboard elements. I'm going to fill in this space down here. I still have this little tag, so we'll just pop that up right there. And then I decided to stop being lazy, and I did recreate that wood plank element circle on toffee paper to complement the right-hand side. The white paper just wasn't the right tone. And of course, now my pocket watch doesn't stand out. So then I had to restamp that on white paper. If you give a mouse a cookie, right? I went ahead and printed my journaling on the Avery clear sticker paper, and we can move these little brackets. I will adhere this right to this open space. Originally, I was going to include my journaling in a flip flap, but this space presented itself as the design came together, so I really loved the look of this, and printing it on the paper makes it, the sticker paper makes it so easy. I have been spending some time organizing and sorting through my embellishments, so I came across these two little paperboard sentiments, Remember This Day, and since I added black ink with the camera and the pocket watch, I wanted to introduce black elsewhere on the layout, so that just worked out perfectly. And then I do have a scrap of this same paper and another one of these little wooden paperboard shapes, so I'll just put those little guys right up top there. Since I moved my journaling to the front, I had more room for photos. So this is going to flip up and you'll see that cool building with the yellow flowers. There's my family looking inside the windows. And then this is what you see on the inside, the cool old rocking chair and the old wallpaper and rugs. And then of course they're just walking down the streets there. So those will all sit in 3x4 flip flaps. I promised I would show you my little church turned into a cabin, and these are a few cards that I have created. Now, anything you use on a card, you can put on a scrapbook layout. So I could have used this same design on a winter Christmas layout, and instead of a church, made it a winter cabin. And I just surrounded it by trees. I have white glitter paper on the bottom, and I just hand cut a little snowbank down there. And then I die cut the wreath there. This is from the same Evergreen Scrapbooking stamp, and I wanted the white pretty tight, so I did fussy cut that, and then I colored in the little red bow and then added some of the carnation red liquid pearls to add little berries. And then to take the further accent with red, I stamped the Peace and Joy. That is from the Evergreen Cardmaking stamp. More pine trees and great sentiments, and there is this sentiment that I used for this particular card. Now for this one, I have created the same design, but because of the steeple, I didn't have a whole lot of room for the sentiment. So I did stamp it on the inside, and that is from the same stamp set. So everything used to create this particular card is from one stamp set. And you see a tiny little red bird in the tree there. I just couldn't help myself, and I looked at my stamp collection and found this itty bitty bird. This is the Backyard Bliss card making stamp. This was from, oh, I don't even remember, maybe last summer, but this bird was a perfect size, so I just stamped that, colored it red, and then fussy cut it out to add to the little tree there for my winter scene with this church just tucked into the snowy pines. So just some more ideas on how you can use the church for a whole different look. I often do not show the process of adding my flip flaps because my layouts go into a temporary album, and I don't add the flip flaps until they're in their permanent album, and that's just because it allows me to move things around easier. A lot of people will adhere their flip flaps directly to their layout and then cut their page protector. You can definitely do it that way. There's no right or wrong way. I like to stick mine to the outside. It works great for me. I've never had an issue. So that's what I'm going to do. Maybe one of these days I will attempt to cut the page protectors just to try it. But I've got 3x4 flip flaps. Some of these open with the adhesive this way, so you could, depending on the orientation of your photo, if you had a landscape, it could flip up. You could have it flip out. This one I'm going to flip up, so I'm thinking I'm going to go like that. So this is much easier to do when you can get your head over the layout, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of turn this on an angle. This adhesive is very strong, so once you burnish it in, you don't really get a do-over. So make sure that your layout is tucked in where you want it. Okay, I'm just making sure that's lined up before I adhere it down, and that is looking pretty good. We're a tiny bit crooked. Tiny bit crooked. I'm going to try to peel this up. You know what? Nope, committed. We're going for it. It's okay. Actually, maybe it's not. Maybe this is just not in all the way. It wasn't. Oh, perfect. Okay, perfect. We're looking good. So we can just burnish that in. And I don't think, I don't really notice this. Some people don't like the adhesive over or out to the outside of the page protector because they think it interferes with the photo, but it doesn't bother me. I know it's hard to see because we have the reflection there, but let's see if we can now adhere this one to the inside of that. So it's a little bit tricky when you're layering them. I don't often layer them. Most of the time I just have like one flip flap. If I do layer them, they might be kind of offset in like a waterfall type of configuration. So we're going to fold that over, place this down, make sure it's in there straight. And just like so. Before I burnish that in, I'm just going to see if everything's good. And that's good. That's looking good. So we can just burnish that in now. Okay. And there you go. We have our flip flaps inside or onto the page protector, and you can see how that works out. And I kind of like it because that just worked out where when you flip it up, it's really in line. So you still see that matte peeking out around that photo, and it is perfectly lined up with this one. So that's kind of cool. If this video inspired you and you enjoyed it, go ahead and take a moment to hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not already a subscriber, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and join the fun. Everything I used to create this project can be found in the description box below the video. Don't forget to check out my crafty friends and how they have used this sketch to create their projects. You can catch that right here in this playlist on the bottom. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.